Okay, so if you're back, you're here to look at the answer for problem set number 2. So our answers for problem set number 2 should be x minus 9 equals 3/5 of x. And then for the other one, we should have x plus 1 all over 4 equals 189.5. So if you got those two correct, you can move on. If you did not, then hang around and see what we can do to make sure we get it right in the future. So this problem is actually a lot like the problem that we saw in our example. So I would say that if you feel like, oh man, I forgot that, then go ahead and check that problem out and see if you can do it on your own again. If you already looked at the problem and you're still lost, then let's do it together. So it says Stephen has some money. If he spends $9, then he will have 3/5 of the amount that he started with. Okay, so they talk about his money, but they don't tell me how much money he had. So because they don't tell me what it is, that is what we call an unknown. And when we have an unknown, it's represented by a variable because we don't know what number should be there. So because that's our variable, we need to define it. So I would say, let x be the amount of money that Stephen starts with. When I say that, I can go back in and I can replace those amounts with x. And then I can read the problem again. So Stephen has x. He spends $9. Then he will have 3/5 of x. And that's my statement now. So now I can go back and look at other expressions. So for example, spends $9. When you have an expression like this that's not a mathematical expression, sometimes you have to decide, okay, in terms of this problem, spending $9, is that the same as adding 9, subtracting 9, multiplying by 9, or dividing by 9? So think back to what the variable represents. I'm talking about I had some money and I spent some of it. So I'm going to take the money that I have, and if I'm taking some away by spending it, that should be subtracting. Okay, so since I know this is subtract 9, I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read, Stephen has x, subtract 9, then equals 3/5 of x. Okay, so the last part here that we needed to code is this 3/5 of x, which I've talked about before. This is a part of whole language, part of the whole thing, right? And when we have part of the whole thing, that's generally multiplication. So part whole. So again, if I read this again, Stephen has x, subtract 9 equals 3/5 x. X subtract 9 equals 3/5 of x. We're done. Okay, take a look at the next one. This is a pretty cool problem. It talks about two consecutive numbers. So again, to write consecutive numbers, these are not even, these are just regular. So I can write x and then x plus 1. So this is like if I said 1 and then 2, right? Because 1 plus 1 is 2. So it says I take their sum, add them together, and after I take their sum, what do? We divide it. Okay, so I see some of you probably put like the division box. Okay, remember, division can be represented using a fraction. So I take this whole sum and I divide it by 4, and they tell me that the answer equals 189.5.